All right, the big story, of course, Nigeria's gross domestic product in the second quarter of this year annualized 3.19% in real terms. GDP growth, of course, surpassing the 2.51% recorded in the same period last year and the 2.98% growth seen in the first quarter of this year. It looks like oil seems to be the story. We're going to get into this with our special guest, Clement Izu, who, of course, is the head of the economic think tank and financial derivatives company limited. Yeah, so, okay, actually, before we even get to our guests, let's look at a few of the other numbers coming from the GDP figures. So you're looking at a chart of annual GDP growth. Now, the two red figures you're seeing there is when Nigeria fell into recession as a result of oil prices tanking in 2015 and then 2016, and then tanking again in 2020. We had a commodity bust in 2016. We had COVID, which of course impacted Nigeria. The present administration of the Tinubu government wants to get Nigeria back to 6% growth that you can see to the left-hand side of your screen, last achieved under the Jonathan administration in 2014. To the right, at the extreme end of your other side of the screen, 2.74% growth is what was achieved in fiscal year 2023. Can we exceed that in 2024? What else have we got? We got so many numbers on the economic figures now for Nigeria. There's the quarterly numbers. So 3.19% at the far right. That green arrow shows when this present administration came into office. So it has been increasing since then. All right. Okay. Our guest is ready. Clement Izu, who of course is the head of the economic think tank and financial derivatives company limited. Clement, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So I don't know if you agree that this is an oil story, but you look at oil, the oil sector GDP growth, 10.15%. It contracted by 13% in the first quarter. Well, what's your take on what the role oil played here?
The role that oil plays in Nigerian economic growth and trajectory completely is not undeniable. In the last 12 quarters before 2024, oil contracted. The first positive growth was in Q1 2024, and then it sustained that momentum in Q2 2024. But let's let the facts bear. The major driver of Q2 growth isn't oil. That's what is in the news, but that's not the major driver.
Okay.
If you look at the contribution to growth, which is different from contribution to GDP. GDP is the size of the economy. Growth is rate of change in that size. If you look at the contribution to growth, it was the financial service sector, which contributed 48% of 3.19. That's massive.
Okay.
Followed by telco, which contributed 28%. Oil contributed 17% of that growth. Right?
Yeah.
So, and is the good news about the momentum oil is sustaining is that oil has deepened linkage effect across all sectors, right? But also the fact that I can tell you these numbers, the GDP numbers, for me, they look good.
Okay.
They are not the best. Okay. Right? But they look good because in an era of monetary policy tightening, you expect a strong trade-off, right? That will give you tepid or slower growth. So, but we have the growth accelerating from where 2.98 in Q1. When you now check with corresponding quarter in 2023, 2.5. Although we have base effect because remember we are coming from Q1 of cashless crisis, and then it spilled to April, May before June last year. And so you see that effect was there. So you have that base effect playing in. And then we also have other very strong factors, like in the financial service sector. You see that growth is strong, but it's not unusual. When you have monetary policy tightening, yields, interest rate go up, right? That means that the spread between deposits and lending rates widens, and the banks make more takes, make more profits, make more earnings. And so you see that it is natural. Even in Italy last year, they had to slam windfall tax on the banks because of that spread, because the spread was wide. So, but that is good. But we also see resilience. Most sectors of the economy, we've seen resilience, all right, because at this time, we have a whole lot of economic crisis that will create tremendous setback, but we have seen, especially agents, household businesses that have been quite resilient in withstanding all of this.
Okay. I want to push back on the oil story because production increased. And look, when you look at how much oil brings, fine, you're correct. Non-oil sector, 96% contribution to growth.
Oil 5.7.
Oil 5. However, oil brings in what, 68-70% of foreign exchange? You don't have any foreign exchange if you're not exporting oil now. So this is non-oil sector. This is the oil sector, 10.15. But if we look at oil production, I think it climbed to 1.4, fell from 1 in the first quarter. Yeah. So I mean, is this not crucial to the economy?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's crucial. The revival, I call it revival in the oil sector is crucial. We can sustain that, because that is very fundamental. But Rotus, let's go back to issues of fundamentals.
Yeah.
Right, because we're looking at short-term growth. We're looking at Q2 growth.
Right.
But that's not the issue. The issue is the long-term growth. Economists look at long-term growth, right? Because in the interim, in the short term, you have cyclicalities, right? So you have downturn and, boom and bust and all of that. But when you smoothing over the long run, it gives you a picture of what you are doing. In the 10 decades to 2014, the average growth was 7.2%.
Yeah.
In the 10 decades to 2024, from 2015 to 2020, in one decade, in a decade, from 2015 to 2024, we have 1.7% growth rate on average.
Right.
But from 2004 to 2014, you have about 7.2% growth rate on average.
Right.
If you even remove COVID, 2020, right? So it's an unusual year, external shock, you get to 2.2 for 10 years average growth. And that shows that there are fundamental issues. So the number we are seeing in itself is masking structural problems.
Right.
And we need to begin to bring those things, those conversations to the table.
Okay, fantastic. You know what? So let's do this. I like the fact that you talked about the financial services. We've got a chart with the subsectors. And looking at those subsectors, you'll see financial services highlighted in green. But look, Clement, this is the chart here. So as you've mentioned, financial and insurance, you can see there 28.79%.
That's the growth.
That's the growth. Yes. And you were talking about the contribution. But look at agriculture top right, 1.4. Manufacturing, 1.2. And for our viewers, this is the far right, the last column on the screen. Trade, 0.7. Real estate, 0.75. I mean, this is not the structural issues you're talking about?
These are the structural issues, because when you look at even the growth, let's even come back to if we look at the sectors generally, you discover about 10 sectors expanded, but these 10 sectors that expanded are not job sensitive.
Gotcha. Good
Petroleum,
point.
Rail, finance, right? Trade, manufacturing, agriculture, either slowed or contracted. And that's a very big signal that there are fundamental issues, right? Like agriculture, we're seeing 1.4. And that is a slow from about 1.5 in the corresponding quarter of 2022. But here we are. Rutus are talking about agriculture. Nigeria is an agrarian society.
It is.
You know that about 49 million Nigerians are severely food insecure, and about 121 million are moderately food insecure. I mean, they are vulnerable to that severe case. But this is Nigeria we're talking about. The problem is this. We need to begin to think transformation in economic structures. How do we do farming? We say it's because of insecurity, but is that sufficient?
Right.
How many states of Nigeria do we have insecurity? About 5 states in Nigeria can feed the whole nation. But it boils down to the structures. Peter Drucker said that the future you want to create, you want to see, that the way to get to it is to create it.
Right.
Now, today in Nigeria, what is our agricultural master plan? We have been funding peasantry. No nation become food sufficient on peasantry. Agricultural export in Nigeria is $1 billion. Philippines, that has just 5.8 million hectares of arable land, is doing $6 billion from 5.8. We have more than 33 million arable, not land sites, arable land that are fertile and can produce. We're doing 1 billion. You know why? Because we are still stuck to smallholder farmers. And these smallholder farmers lack resilience to shock. and they cannot produce enough. And you know, the current campaign we have is everybody should produce farm their own food. It doesn't work that way. We need to retool.
I gotta ask you about livestock very quickly because we're almost running out of time. No, still on your agriculture, but let's put up the agric because we drilled further into agric and we now looked at crop production. Yeah, I mean, Clement, look at livestock. It's been in recession for as long as you can remember. And look, we saw what happened during Eid. People weren't able to afford rams. There's Christmas is coming up. Livestock and fisheries. I think we have a bar chart as well, just to even illustrate how much further this is. Yeah, that's livestock in red. What do we do about livestock and fisheries?
Lotus, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
These things are not in piecemeal.
Right.
We must have a program. We must have a plan. We have set up a Ministry of Agriculture, but that doesn't change anything if you don't have a master plan. Let me give you an example. India has the electricity per capita in India is about 3,700, right?
Yeah.
Nigeria is about 182 kilowatt hour per head.
Yeah.
The electricity stock in India is about 1,850 terawatt hour. Nigeria is far below at 37.
Yeah.
Right? But this India I'm talking about, with where they are, you know what they did in the last 1 year? They increased their electricity by 23,000 megawatts from renewable energy. 18 from renewable energy and 5 from coal. And as at last year, you are aware, around August or October, they commissioned plants about 12 that will generate from hydro 11.5 gigawatts. That's 11,500 megawatts. They have a plan that by 2050, this is where we want to be. That plan must be systematic and scientific, and we need it. We are picking things in the air.
Right.
For us to change the trajectory of growth, number one, there must be capital deepening. But how will private sector, how will businesses
30 seconds, Clement.
invest in capital if they're not sure of the earning from that investment? We have to do something about our workforce, right? Productivity in Nigeria is quite low. And you know, okay, yesterday,
you've made excellent points. Look, we'll have to, you are a busy man and you need to come on the show more because you always make excellent points every time you come on the show. Clement Izu, your point is well made. Thank you for joining us, head of the economic think tank and financial derivatives company. We appreciate your time.